In early 2023, a young couple named Jason and Melina Rosario moved into a modest yet striking Spanish Colonial Revival home nestled in the Hollywood Hills. The house, with its arched doorways, wrought iron details, and shaded courtyard, had an understated beauty that felt both bohemian and ghostly. It had once belonged to River Phoenix, the actor and musician whose tragic death in 1993 still lingered like an unfinished note in the world's memory. Though he never died in the house, his life ended outside the Viper Room on Sunset Boulevard. This was where he had lived, written music, and reportedly spent many nights wrestling with his inner darkness. Jason, a screenwriter from New Jersey, and Melina, a costume designer from Albuquerque, had no interest in ghost stories. They were practical people, freshly married, looking for a creative sanctuary to call their own. The house had been off-market for years, held quietly in a trust. Its return to the public listings in 2022 had barely made a ripple. Jason spotted it on a slow Tuesday afternoon while browsing Zillow and felt an immediate pull. They closed in December. The day they moved in, it was raining, and Melina noticed how the light poured strangely through the stained glass of the front foyer. "It's like it's coming from inside the glass," she said. Jason laughed and kissed her cheek. "That's how you know it's a good house." The oddities started subtly. At night, the couple often heard soft footsteps on the wood floors. Not Creek's footsteps. Jason thought it was the house settling. Melina wasn't so sure. One morning, she found all the living room windows cracked open by exactly 3 inches, though they swore they had locked everything the night before. The stereo system, which Jason had installed himself, occasionally turned on by itself, always playing older rock. Neil Young, Lou Reed, The Velvet Underground. "River's favorites," Melina said once, half joking. They laughed. But they unplugged the system entirely after it turned on at 2:15 a.m. playing Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, River's final audition song. According to one of his biographies, the smell of sandalwood drifted into the hallway near the bedroom sometimes. Melina, a scent-sensitive person, couldn't trace the source. She started sleeping with a lamp on. Jason began writing again, obsessively. His new screenplay, he claimed, was channeling something. It wasn't about River, but the main character looked disturbingly like him, down to the way he played guitar on the edge of his bed and talked about mortality with unfiltered honesty. Jason didn't seem to notice this until Melina pointed it out. Then he got very quiet. In March, a neighbor, a retired photographer named Calvin, stopped by to introduce himself. "That house," he said, nodding toward it. "River loved it. Never wanted to leave even when he had to. Said it was the only place he ever really dreamed." Calvin then added something that stuck with Melina for weeks. "That house doesn't like to be quiet. It gets lonely." That night, Jason had a dream that he woke up in their living room and River was sitting at the piano, barefoot, wearing an old army jacket. He didn't speak. He just played something gentle and unfinished. Jason asked him if he needed help. River looked up and said, "I'm not done yet." Jason woke up sobbing. He wrote the entire second act of his script that night. Melina started noticing cold spots in the hallway, specifically by a framed mirror near the bathroom. Once, while brushing her teeth, she looked up and saw, for less than a second, a figure behind her, thin, long-haired, in shadow. When she turned around, nothing. But the air was cold enough to see her breath. She didn't tell Jason. She didn't want to interrupt his creative streak, though it was starting to look more like obsession than inspiration. By summer, Jason was pale, thinner, and increasingly withdrawn. He barely left the house. His script was now 230 pages long and, according to him, not finished until River says it's done. He referred to the ghost as if it were real, even though Melina never mentioned the name anymore. He claimed that if he stayed up long enough, the piano played notes back to him, 1 note for yes, 2 for no. When she asked him what kind of questions he was asking, Jason didn't respond. Melina began sleeping in the guest room. Her dreams turned vivid and painful. In one, she wandered the house in darkness and found River standing at the top of the stairs, staring out the window at the city lights, whispering, "You see all that? None of it saved me." In the mornings, the piano cover would be open. The bench slightly moved. She invited a medium. The woman barely made it through the front door before saying, "This house is holding on to someone. Not malevolent, but stuck. Very stuck." When Melina asked what they could do to help, the woman simply said, "He needs to know it's okay to leave." But Jason refused. "He's not hurting us," he argued. "He just doesn't want to be forgotten." In October, Melina left for a week, visiting family in New Mexico. When she returned, Jason was gone. Not physically, he was still in the house, but emotionally vacant. He barely spoke. The script was done. He wouldn't let her read it. He said it belonged to someone else. That night, she found a note taped to the mirror. "He didn't want to go. I don't think he ever left. But I told him I'd finish it. And now I have." The next day, Jason asked to move. He said the house had served its purpose. They sold it quietly to a private buyer. Melina refused to enter it again after the movers came. The script was never submitted anywhere. Jason printed one copy and locked it away in a box in their new apartment in Los Feliz. Occasionally, Melina hears him whisper in his sleep, the same phrase over and over, "I'm not done yet." Some say River's soul simply clung to the only place he felt safe. Others say he was never truly there, just a presence built out of longing, pain, and memory. But those who lived in that house, even briefly, will tell you something different. River Phoenix never left. He just waited for someone who would listen, and someone did. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. The Rosario's new apartment in Los Feliz was clean, angular, and lifeless, its walls white and flat, its windows too square, too sharp, with no history behind them. It lacked the sighing weight of old wood and the moody hush of the ivy-covered Spanish Colonial they had left behind. Yet Melina had never been more grateful to feel nothing. Jason, however, was changing again. He no longer spoke of River. He barely spoke at all. He kept to the converted guest room where he'd placed a second-hand desk and the typewriter he'd insisted on hauling with him. It had belonged to someone else before him, someone long dead. The keys clacked like footsteps in the middle of the night. Sometimes, Melina would wake just after 3 a.m. and hear its slow, deliberate tapping like Morse code without meaning. He had locked the script, the one he claimed River had finished through him, in a steel box at the foot of the bed. He didn't want it touched. Melina asked once, softly, if he might be willing to share it. "You said it was done," she reminded him. Jason looked at her like he didn't understand the word. "I said River was done," he said. "I never said I was." That was the first time she noticed the change in his voice. It was still Jason's, technically, but something in the cadence had shifted. The same way an actor slips into character. He had always been gifted at that, picking up mannerisms from films, inflections, even a slouch or tilt of the head if he watched a performance too many times. But this was something deeper, quieter, like someone else was speaking through him, unaware they were being watched. She spent more time outside now. Cafes, walking down Franklin, browsing dusty bookstores. Her appetite for anything spiritual or supernatural had dried up like paper. But something strange happened every time she tried to explain what had occurred in the River Phoenix house. Her voice would catch, her mind would wander, and the words river, ghost, music, unfinished would fail her. As if someone behind her ear was whispering, "Don't say it out loud. Don't pull him back." By November, the weather shifted. A thick coastal fog began curling down from the canyons each evening, as if the whole city were exhaling something it didn't want to name. And with it, the dreams returned. The first was simple. She was walking through the old house again, barefoot on the cool terracotta floor. Dust hung in the air like ash. The piano was playing gently, uncertainly, but when she turned the corner, the bench was empty. She saw Jason standing near the French doors, staring out at the garden. "He doesn't want to go," he said, not turning around. "He wants to keep making things. Through us." She reached for him, but her hand passed through his shoulder. He flickered like a reel skipping. She woke with tears in her eyes, the sound of the typewriter ticking from the next room. One morning, while he was in the shower, Melina unlocked the box. She had found the key weeks ago hidden in the lining of his old coat, the one he used to wear when they first moved to LA, a little relic of their happier years. She had debated for days whether to use it, but the pull of whatever was inside had become unbearable. She didn't know if it was curiosity, fear, or something else entirely. The box was cold to the touch. Unnaturally so. Inside, the manuscript was bound in twine. Nearly 300 pages, typed single-spaced. No title page. No name. She flipped it open, just a random page near the middle. The language was dense, poetic, raw. Dialogue and stream of consciousness blended together like the fevered scrawl of someone caught between dreams and memory. One passage stood out, circled faintly in pencil. I walked the halls again, barefoot like before, but I don't remember building this place. I don't remember where the doors lead. I only know that I left something here. A song maybe, a voice, a part of me. Melina sat down hard. Her heart thudded like a slow drumbeat in her chest. The next page was handwritten, not in Jason's script. This writing was messy, almost childlike. Faint smudges of charcoal or soot marked the edges. She read the first line. I was supposed to be more than this. She heard the shower turn off. She closed the manuscript, locked the box again, slid the key back into his coat. But something had been set in motion. A quiet opening of a door neither of them knew they had built. Jason became more erratic after that. He would hum in the kitchen, old songs she couldn't play stripped down, aching melodies that made her want to cry for no reason. He talked to himself in short bursts, usually when he thought she wasn't listening. Not like that. That's not what you meant. Yeah, I remember that night. No one saw the real you. He hadn't touched a guitar in years, but he bought one off Craigslist and began tuning it obsessively, even though he never played more than a few chords, just enough to test the air. One afternoon, Melina came home to find him standing in the living room with his eyes closed, strumming slow, open notes. He whispered, almost inaudibly, "Tell me where the bridge goes." She asked him later if he felt like he'd brought something with him from the old house. He looked at her with eyes that were too tired for his face. "No," he said. "I think it was already here." That night, the typewriter started again. But Jason was asleep. Melina stood outside the door to the office, breath caught in her throat. She knew the cadence of his typing, his rhythm, his pauses. This was different, smoother, more deliberate, like a musician playing scales. She opened the door. The chair was empty, but the keys were tapping themselves, one after another, as if pulled by invisible fingers. The paper in the roller read, "I'm still here." She didn't scream. She didn't move. She just watched. And then, slowly, the typing stopped. The room fell back into silence. But she could still feel the music hanging in the air. Waiting. In the days after the typewriter incident, something changed between Melina and the apartment, not just the air, which felt denser, heavier, but the very sense of space. It was as if corners stretched longer than they should, shadows lingered half a beat too long, and light from the street lamps pooled unnaturally on the ceiling at night, like a reflection from somewhere far deeper than the glass of a window should allow. Jason, for his part, moved through the apartment like a man underwater. He spoke less, ate less, slept in what appeared to be small bursts. When she woke in the middle of the night, always at that liminal hour between 3 and 4 a.m., she would see his silhouette by the window, unmoving. He had taken to whispering softly under his breath, eyes slightly open but blank. When she asked him what he was saying, he never remembered. She didn't ask twice. One afternoon in late November, Melina returned home early from a costuming gig in Echo Park. A light rain was falling, thin and silver, the kind that doesn't soak but makes the city shimmer like it's been coated in old memory. She stopped in the driveway, just watching the rain bead across the windshield. Something inside her resisted going inside. Through the apartment's front window, she could see Jason at his desk. He was hunched over the manuscript box again, flipping pages not with care but with urgency, like he was looking for something specific and couldn't find it. His lips moved rapidly. There was no sound. She left the car running, walked up the path. By the time she stepped inside, the energy in the apartment had shifted. Gone was the familiar smell of paper, ink, and Jason's cologne. In its place was something older, thinner, like dry wood soaked in the perfume of time. Jason didn't acknowledge her. His eyes were wild. "I can't hear it anymore," he said suddenly. "It's like it's gone silent." Melina asked him what he meant. "The house, the song, whatever was here, it's receding. I think he's trying to leave." She noticed the manuscript was no longer bound. The pages fanned out across the floor, scattered like wind-blown leaves. Several were stained faint, splotchy brown marks. Coffee? Blood? Ink? She couldn't be sure. Her heart began to beat faster. Then she saw a new page. It wasn't typed. It had been torn from a spiral notebook, the kind you'd find in a high school backpack in the late 80s. On it, in ballpoint pen, were lyrics. Half a song. The handwriting was not Jason's. "When the street is too quiet, and the lights don't blink, I walk back to the hallway, where the shadows think." Melina dropped the page. Her fingers felt electric. She knew that phrasing. She had read something almost identical in Running on Empty, a biography of River Phoenix published years ago, now out of print. She retrieved the copy from her bookshelf and flipped through it. Page 142, an offhand reference from a bandmate. "River used to scribble lyrics all over the place. I remember one, 'The lights don't blink, the shadows think.' That one stuck with me." She stared at Jason, but he was no longer looking at her. He was staring toward the bedroom door. Slowly, without a word, he stood and walked toward it. The air in the hallway was cooler. A temperature drop, subtle but deliberate. Melina followed him, not out of courage but necessity. She had the sudden, clear sense that if she let him walk into that room alone, something would close. Something would finish. Inside, the lamp by the bed flickered. A single tone barely audible hung in the air, like the lowest key of a piano being pressed and held by an invisible hand. Jason stood at the edge of the bed, breathing shallowly. "He's here," he said. "Just for a moment. He's checking in." Melina opened her mouth, but the words didn't come. Her eyes settled on the mirror, the same kind that had once hung near the bathroom in their old house. Jason had brought it here, claiming it helped him channel focus. She had never questioned it. But now, the mirror was fogging at the edges, despite no steam or heat. And then she saw it. Not clearly, not like in a movie, but just enough. The outline of a figure behind Jason. Slight, lanky, shirtless. The faint suggestion of long hair curling around the jawline. A tilt of the head that looked familiar, achingly so. Not malevolent, not angry, just tired. Jason didn't turn around. He whispered, I know, I didn't forget." The figure in the mirror raised one hand. The light bulb popped. Darkness swallowed the room. They didn't speak of it for days. Melina couldn't. Jason wouldn't. But something eased in him. Not joy, not relief. Just a small loosening of the rope that had tied itself around his chest for weeks. He began eating again, sleeping for longer stretches. He opened the blinds, cleaned the desk. One morning, she noticed the manuscript box had been emptied. "Its contents burned," he said, "in the sink with lighter fluid and a match." "He's gone now," Jason said, almost smiling. "He said everything he needed." But Melina wasn't so sure. She kept the lyric page, folded it into the back of the biography like a bookmark. Some nights, when the fog returned and the corners of the apartment stretched just a little too long, she would take it out and read it softly under her breath. Sometimes on those nights she would hear a chord, one soft note, from no discernible source. She never told Jason, because something told her this wasn't over. It was waiting, somewhere between the lines, between the silence and the music, between who he was and who still hadn't let go. By early spring, Jason had taken a new writing job, something commercial, forgettable, safe. The guitar gathered dust in the corner. The typewriter stayed quiet. He never asked for the manuscript again. Melina, however, couldn't let it rest. The house on Hillside Avenue, where it all began, had been relisted. The new owners, a retired couple from San Diego, made no mention of ghosts, music, or River Phoenix. They'd repainted the walls, retiled the bathroom, removed the old mirror. Still, something lingered, a residue. One afternoon, Melina returned. Alone, just to see it. She parked across the street, engine running, and watched the ivy move in the wind. And then, in one upstairs window, just for a moment she saw it. A faint flicker of a young man sitting at a desk. Head bowed, hands hovering over keys that weren't there. A feeling, not a sound, not a word passed through her. Not grief, not fear, just a soft, bittersweet thanks. She blinked, and the window was empty. The past had finally finished its last verse. River was gone, but the music had stayed. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.